In the aftermath of our storied events, which would come to be known as Contra, the bar was now set as NES owners shortly after would begin looking for that next big 8-bit offering. Konami had officially established the blueprint for the run-and-gun experience. Fans' tastes grew over time, being treated to a slew of fantastic arcade and home releases year after year. Developers would adopt many of Contra's early ideas into their upcoming releases, yet at a moment in time, Contra was all the craze, and it wouldn't take long for Konami to capitalize on the success as they hit the ground running and gunning from the start. With the initial success, you couldn't just release another game of this caliber, right? Again, Konami had the blueprint, but they needed something bigger, something badder, something super to see the sequel over the top, and in 1 year's time, fans would get just that as the arcade release of Super Contra followed shortly after. Although becoming a larger hit on the NES over time, Konami wasn't looking to give this sequel the Lost Levels treatment. They just knew they had something special on their hands. What they needed was that McDonald's Super Size Me feel, with an extra large fry and an even larger serving of those killer aliens. With all that firepower, the true test would come delivering a faithful home port of the arcade sequel. But how would this supersized package end up going over with the fans? Now, most ports of Super Contra are more or less direct PC releases of the arcade original, yet when it came to the success of the NES, Konami would now need to go back to work for a fresh perspective on this new entertainment system everyone's raving about. To do this, they would rework the original 5 arcade stages of Super Contra, expanding on them further, while additionally constructing 3 new stages to coincide with the length of its predecessor. So, with that said, Super C is technically a reimagining of Super Contra, while technically, the definitive release all the same as storied events would pan out differently. There's also brand new enemy designs thrown into the mix that push our Hollywood commandos to new levels. Funny enough, the original Famicom release retained the arcade title Super Contra, while here stateside would be given the Super C title. So, now that we have the pieces for this puzzle, let's put them together to determine how we arrived here to begin with, as we now take a deep dive into the events that came to be known as Super C. After our fearless commandos put an end to Java's plan for an interstellar takeover, his newly founded Red Falcon organization appeared to have dismantled. With the threat contained, Earth Federation now looked to rebuild a fallen nation. However, within 1 year's time, intel comes in from HQ informing our team that there appears to be strange acts of coercion occurring amongst their allied partners, the GX Force. These events appear to be linked to that of the Red Falcon organization. Survivors of the Galuga Fallout relocated to their allied military base located within South America. The remaining alien offspring that survived the destruction naturally adapted over time, quickly migrating to this new region, infecting the minds of the GX soldiers. This new breed is led by a powerful entity known as Gava, looking to carry out the orders of their original brood. Bill and Lance suit up once more, aiming to take out this new batch of alien hybrids, only now forced to fight against their own brothers in arms. As Bill and Lance jump back into the heat of battle, they manage to bring a few new tricks to this alien dogfight. They're still rocking that 8-bit run-and-gun war plan, yet the way you navigate our commandos across the many battle zones have been reworked for some great new modes of play, as Konami would now opt out of those pseudo 3D isometric stages in exchange for a top-down viewpoint. Being a fan of games like Capcom's Bionic Commando and SNK's Guerrilla War, I can appreciate these for what they are, and it gives the sequel a bit more of its own identity. Aesthetically, there's quite a significant upgrade in sprite quality, as taking out the opposition this time around is done with a far greater level of detail. The color choices throughout sport a far greater palette that really make those cinematic moments pop. The best change, however, is that pitiful fireball has now been replaced with a superior flamethrower, allowing our boys to launch a red-hot assault, torching any and all alien scum trying to hold me back. Even Konami knew that shit was lame. The spread also appears to have a bit more surface area, as the circumference of these bullets look to have grown in size, as if this weapon needed to be any more obnoxious. So with all these beefy improvements added to the mix, there's really only one question remaining. Which release are we going to war with this time? Well, our Super C stateside release brings back those helpful codes. Not the Konami code, but a modified version that awards you 10 lives. You gotta now press right, left, down, up, A, B, then start. Such a strange choice of combinations. What happened to the Konami code? The soundtrack is also available to check out for those sweet chiptuned arcade remixes. Now, on the flip side, the Famicom release gives us those missing 20 lives for a full 30 piece, along with the stage select code. Man, what in the Castlevania 3 is going on here? Can I get a help me code to stack on top of those 10 lives? Either way, the choices are yours and yours alone, and I guess you could always call in the Pro Protectors. I mean, we're already letting AI take over the world. The last thing I need is for them to turn on me mid-alien invasion. I can fight my own battles, thank you very much. With that said, we don't have a moment to spare, so get to the chopper as we make our way over to the battlegrounds, because this war zone lies just ahead. As we now head into the heat of battle, we descend down from our chopper, hitting the pavement running like a seasoned veteran would, looking to unload a can of whoop-ass. The GX's military base has seen better days, run down by corruption as the streets are now up in arms while allied soldiers draw forth, zombified to the touch, marching to the beat of their own militia. Super C delivers right out the gate, throwing you into the line of fire as you hot-footed across enemy lines, slowly tapping into your own Ultra Instinct. Where Contra 1 opens to a very expansive Stage 1, Super C sort of puts you on the direct path from the very start, with marginal room for beginner error. This backwards approach in level design makes this feel more like an extension of the original than a true sequel. We just gotta tough it out though. If you can't man up from the very beginning, then best head back to training camp. As you push past the initial enemy defenses, a heavy-barreled carrier will touch down, opening up the hatches to light up the sky. An excellent opener that will require you to constantly stay on your toes, disarming the many stationary turrets mounted to its frame while the rear hatches begin deploying troops down into the battlefield. Busting through this line of defense reveals the carrier's core, so don't hesitate. Continue firing at this sucker's weak point, and soon enough it comes crashing below, opening a path to our first destination. Here we are greeted to the first of these new top-down obstacle courses, an abandoned military base which now houses the reformed Red Falcons. I gotta say, these stages are really well done, and you can now pull off some fun shots, peeking around each corridor looking to snipe enemy troops. As you proceed forward, you need to break through each line of security, so grab your weapon of choice and have at 'em. The entire stage has a great feel of depth to it, as the further you move ahead, the more each corridor bears a unique degree of mystery. As tensions rise, take aim and just fire. There's a ton of large-scale enemy encounters that make each segment feel like a big deal. These new war vessels are no joke, especially when you reach their big boy toys. The Magnus Destroyer, a war vessel that seats a 3-man band capable of a triangle offense that keeps you guessing with a roulette of attacks. All you can do is keep your distance and counterattack, anticipating each of their movements as you pick off these war generals one by one. Eventually, you find a way back to the great outdoors, now slowly withered away by the construction of this mechanical war zone. You will need to be precise with each attack, dipping low to pick off camouflage turrets while aiming high for snipers hidden throughout the trees. One-shot these fools and keep a lookout till you reach the river bend for a quick dip below, sneaking past the enemy troops' line of defense. The whole scene is action-packed, coming to life to put you in your Rambo feels. It's indeed over the top in the best way imaginable, and soon enough, the ground around you will give way, as this construction zone appears to have caused a seismic shift below as the earth now slowly separates beneath you. This is the moment I've made so many memories with friends. Watching their reactions to these events never gets old. The floor will eat you alive every time, and you will eventually be sharing a lifeline to get your homie through to the very end. You find a way into the Red Falcon stronghold where shit begins to get real. This is where Super C shines on the NES, as the stage itself slowly crumbles from above, transitioning us into those sweet new vertical climbing sections. You quickly get a nice serving of PTSD too, as enemy fire shoots a mist of those lovely floating bubbles from a previous playthrough, now filling an already confined space with some heart-pounding calls. There's some designs here too I can really appreciate, such as these Garth troops, winged falcons that descend down into the battlefield, as well as the many rotating cannons that line the sides of this base, looking to capitalize on your every misstep. The base continues to fall apart with this cinematic feel to it that makes this whole area feel like a true movie scene. With our second base secured, events lead our commando to the upper mountain regions. Climbing high into the sky, the land appears to have further separated from the seismic shifts below, sending large boulders hurtling down across this aggro crag of an obstacle course. You need to find the guts to rise up, staying in sync with your opposition, now hovering from opposite sides of the field, all while snipers perch patiently for your ascent. If you can find the will to power through, the pieces will slowly come together as the real enemy has been cloaked behind the scenes, hidden inside this floating warehouse to whereabouts truly unworldly. An alien warship emerges that houses the decaying remains of potentially mutated soldiers. quite possibly allied forces you once fought alongside. Skulls will begin to be deployed from various hatches down atop the battlefield, while those gnarly gel spores get misted in below. The vessel shortly after attempts to body you by dropping down below for a bone-crushing finale. If you're lucky enough to have the spread, you can easily keep the craze to a bare minimum, containing each round of dispatches. Putting matters to rest reveals the real plans in motion behind the scenes. The warehouse was simply a cover-up, which houses an alien harvest, bringing things full circle as you now dive into another top-down war zone. This alien hive makes Java's domain look small-time, as this new breed appears to be thriving. To make matters worse, the floors begin to shake, and if you don't keep your feet in steady motion, you're going to be eaten alive. This new brood is highly intelligent, running circles around you by playing the numbers game. The walls will slowly cave in, now bearing alien incubators that mother their newborns, whom are ready to enjoy their very first meal. This might be the most challenging sequence of the game, as this entire stretch becomes a wild maze of strange encounters, forcing you to pivot back and forth for a safe pocket to get your shot off. As you push ahead, you're greeted to a wall of tiny humanoid faces, fused together, grinning back as if they were expecting your arrival. They quickly spew projectiles about until you wipe their smirks straight off their faces. The room then goes silent, beginning to shake for a grand entrance. Emperor Gava has now drawn near, poking his head out as this massive creature is far too large in stature to fully emerge. Well, if he's stupid enough to show his ugly mug, then make his bitch ass pay, letting your presence be known as you light him up with raw firepower, evading his Tremors-inspired earthworm sidekick that roams the arena. Keep a steady firepower until he's quickly overwhelmed, blowing his head clear off, reclaiming his headquarters in the name of the Contra Force. With Emperor Gava out of the way, the story of Super C takes a radical twist from its Super Contra counterpart, as you now begin to investigate what lies beyond Gava's domain. Proceeding with caution, you carve a path below through the alien larvae, discovering new life forms in the deepest pits of hell where evil takes new shape. The path reveals ledges below, guarded by some new mutations, and those pesky egg pods resurface, housing our favorite alien facehuggers. As you reach what appears to be the deepest pit of this nest, a large bioweapon now sits, doubling as an underground shelter for these new life forms. These hatchlings drip down from its skeletal orifices to close in on you from all sides, while gel spores spew from the creature's mouth. This weapon will begin switching up its defenses with a charged attack emitted from its center chambers. Stay calm and keep a jump rope rhythm going with each wave of enemy strikes until this ultimate weapon seizes up, presenting a path forward into the belly of the beast. The interior nest is entirely made up of foreign organic matter that continuously shifts apart. Here you discover the main horde, an advanced form of Java species that have almost human-like qualities about them. The Orions are the closest thing to a true xenomorph, advanced creatures of war that sense your foul presence. There's many inhabitants that occupy these walls, spewing their genetic code throughout, while others pop up like tiny stationary weapons that quickly spit their venom to catch you off guard. The nest will rapidly shapeshift as you descend down. This organic matter will attempt to crush you from within, with each step taken as alien sacs now materialize with tiny hatchlings and the ground further separates beneath you. As you find a way down into the heart of the nest, the ground begins to tremble, creating a large opening for something sinister to rise up from within. A new presence draws forth, bearing humanoid features fused with alien origin that appears to have been in hibernation while Gava's plans were acted out. This amalgamation wastes little to no time, unleashing a poison throughout the room to catch our commando off guard. The creature's appendages will soon after release a line of insect gel into the corridors for a follow-up attack. Standing directly in front of its frontal legs provides you a safe space to attack, leaving this creature fully vulnerable without a way to counterattack, creating one of the most unexpectedly lopsided final boss encounters I've truly come across. Putting this unsettling alien to rest will cause the horde to quickly go up in smoke as the Federation swoops in on call to scoop you up on your way out of this wicked hellhole. Super C doesn't go out of the way to present itself as anything more than just another helping of that classic Konami run and gun formula. Although at times the game can sort of leave you wishing for a little something different, it excels at what the series is known for, over-the-top level designs and larger-than-life enemies. The original Contra granted players more means to explore each area with diverse routes of travel, and although I wasn't expecting this to be on the level of a Simon's Quest, I do wish there was a way to deviate off the straight and narrow path. But hey, now that it's been brought up, you can't say a non-linear Contra sequel wouldn't have been a fun idea. The stages themselves are all highly detailed throughout, especially towards the later half, deep inside the alien nest. The vertical stages create a greater sense of depth, filling you with uncertainty as you slowly uncover the chilling mysteries behind these new alien encounters. These stages really capture the horror-esque cinematic atmosphere down to a T. Although I prefer the earlier pseudo 3D isometric stage presentations of the original, the top-down perspective gave developers an advantage by allowing for larger open play areas with bigger boss encounters, thus again complementing the atmosphere and artistic vision. This game took an already short arcade release and retooled it to a tiny 8-bit cartridge that not only granted players an expanded campaign, but told a much more complete story, giving NES owners whom had already been familiarized to the arcade original an incentive to purchase it for their NES. So I guess what I'm trying to say, folks, is that Super C is a damn good follow-up, so give it a shot sometime, and be sure to tell me how you felt about it. But hey, maybe NES arcade ports aren't your thing, and you're just looking for something fresh and new. Well, for our next entry, best believe you will receive just that, as our third entry in this flagship series would be built from the ground up for the Super NES, which is just dripping in all its 16-bit glory. Get ready to reload as we now look to future events. The Red Falcon army will inevitably rise again, waging an all-out war on the planet that would come to be known in the history books as the Alien Wars. See you there, gang.